afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your attendance today so that I can provide an update to the people of Bermuda on key developments that are relevant to the fiscal and economic situation in Bermuda. Let me first begin by extending my sympathies to all of those who have suffered loss because of COVID-19. I also wish to express my appreciation to those who have served and continue to serve on the front line and provide invaluable support and care during this difficult time. As I've previously highlighted, the government is committed to ensuring that we address such matters in a prudent and disciplined manner, ensuring that there is a strong focus on the financial challenges the people of Bermuda face as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and other relevant factors. The government is sensitive to the impact that this pandemic has had here in Bermuda. Therefore, we have taken decisive and deliberate actions since the beginning of this pandemic to assist and support both individuals and businesses. Under normal circumstances, taxes and government fees are reviewed every 2 years, and inflationary increases are applied as deemed appropriate. However, given ongoing challenges, other than in very limited circumstances, there have not been changes to tax rates or fees since 2018. In addition to giving numerous concessions, relief, and benefits during the height of the pandemic, the Bermuda government has continued in this fiscal year to offer tax relief, concessions, and financial assistance where possible to sectors and persons severely impacted by this crisis. Funding for capital projects has been made available to address essential infrastructure needs, help stimulate economic activity, and offer increased employment opportunities. Other initiatives are being worked on to address lending costs and assist Bermudians in their goal of becoming homeowners. Our ongoing commitment to considered fiscal management was a key feature to our undertaking to our bond investors during our successful 2020 debt refinancing, and was again a central point in our economic recovery plan published earlier this year. That commitment and our continued work in that regard have once again been independently evaluated and affirmed in a recent assessment of Bermuda that was published by the Kroll Bond Rating Agency on the 7th of October. I am pleased to report that in their assessment, KBRA affirmed Bermuda's long-term and short-term issuer ratings. The long-term rating was affirmed at A+, with an outlook that was revised upwards from negative to stable. The short-term rating was affirmed at K1+. The A+ long-term rating is in the third tier of KBRA's rating index and indicates that the bond issuer is determined to be of high quality with a small risk of loss due to credit-related events. The K1+ short-term rating is in the top tier of KBRA's rating index and indicates that the issuer has an exceptional ability to meet short-term obligations. KBRA has indicated that the decision to revise Bermuda's outlook from negative to stable reflects the government's commitment to fiscal restraint and expectations for a modest economic recovery over the medium term. It is noteworthy that the report also states that the A+ rating was affirmed due to Bermuda's strong institutions, including a high-quality regulatory environment which underpins the country's status as a financial hub. KBRA also indicated that prospects for expanding new niche industries, especially in fintech and digital assets, underscores Bermuda's capacity to position itself for investment opportunities. The report also has a section dedicated to the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. It highlighted that the government's COVID-19 related fiscal measures included substantial healthcare spending, temporary unemployment benefits, tax postponement, payroll tax relief for the most affected sectors of the economy, and assistance to small businesses. These measures form part of the government's response to the pandemic, and KBRA's assessment demonstrated that the actions taken were considered prudent and effective. This is reinforced when the report goes on to state, and I quote, "Bermuda, like many economies exposed to tourism, experienced an external shock from the collapse in tourism receipts when the pandemic hit. And this on top of the domestic shock from lockdown. However, Bermuda's resilience has been much more robust than initially expected," end quote. Overall, Bermuda received a positive report from KBRA, which is reflected in the outlook for the country being revised from negative to stable. The agency has demonstrated its belief that the country is on a stable path forward under this government. This rating affirmation demonstrates confidence in Bermuda's maintaining a comparatively favorable position to continue to have access to capital. This will assist the government in our goal of successfully navigating Bermuda through this current pandemic and beyond, combining economic success with social responsibility. To counter the effects of the pandemic, as noted in the KBRA report previously mentioned, the government continues to seek opportunities and innovative solutions during these challenging times. Therefore, in addition to providing assistance in the domestic arena with the construct of prudent financial management, we've also committed to a program of continued effective communication and ongoing collaboration with industry in relation to initiatives designed to protect and promote Bermuda's interest. In that regard, during the last week of September, along with a team of key local industry stakeholders, I met with a number of top law firms, asset managers, and investors in New York City to discuss Bermuda's aspiration to become the world's climate risk capital and a hub for climate tech innovation. The meetings were aimed at promoting Bermuda as an ideal location to domicile, both for them and their clients considering opportunities in the climate risk or ESG industry. The team collectively presented Bermuda's strong commitment to quality and compliance with international standards, other core competitive advantages, ESG commitments, and recent government policies designed to provide a sound and appropriate environment to accelerate their initiatives and help their businesses to succeed. Bermuda has a rich history and wealth of experience in catastrophe risk finance, making the climate vertical complementary to Bermuda's globally recognized strengths in regulation, insurance and reinsurance, insurance-linked securities, and professional services. As a result, countries and international corporations have relied on the island's reinsurance services to cover their liabilities for over 50 years. Climate change is a real challenge facing the world today, and Bermuda certainly has a strong track record in providing coverage and appropriate claims payment capabilities in relation to natural catastrophes. Therefore, climate risk financing is another opportunity for Bermuda to provide further assistance in an area of critical global importance. It should be noted that actions being taken on this matter are consistent with the economic recovery plan and with other work being done to diversify our economy. The government will therefore continue with our program to foster Bermuda's leadership position in climate risk finance. In this regard, a further trip is planned for later this month to highlight what Bermuda can offer. Our work to protect Bermuda's interests requires our involvement with several regional and international bodies on a variety of initiatives that could significantly impact Bermuda's future. In this regard, global tax matters have, over the years, required increasingly greater focus. More recently, as appropriate, we have provided updates on the OECD G20 initiative to combat the base erosion of countries' tax revenues caused by corporate profit shifting, commonly referred to as BEPS. We've actively participated in the discussions on these matters to achieve the best outcome for Bermuda. On Friday, the 8th of October, the OECD published its revisions to the Inclusive Framework Statement of the 1st of July on BEPS. Further to my public statements and my ministerial statement to Parliament, which I made in July of 2021, I would note that from Bermuda's perspective, we did achieve some of our objectives under the BEPS Pillar 2 pillars. We certainly did not obtain all of that we were seeking. However, it is important to highlight that not even the G20 countries successfully got everything they wanted from this initiative. Our key objective under Pillar 1, which relates to the redistribution of tax income, was to achieve an exclusion for our international business financial services sector. We are pleased to advise that an exclusion for regulated financial services has been given in Pillar 1. In the October the 8th, 2021 statement, overwhelmingly approved by 136 of the 140 members of the OECD G20 Inclusive Framework on BEPS. However, the technical details are still to be concluded. We are very pleased with this outcome under Pillar 1. The UK's Association of British Insurers, the Global Federation of Insurance Associations, and jurisdictions that are major international reinsurance centers also welcome this conclusion. Concerning Pillar 2, a key area of focus was the global minimum tax rate. We had anticipated a rate of 12.5%, as that was the rate featured in the OECD's working committee papers for the past 2 years. However, after proposals of much higher rates by some countries, the G7 agreed to 15% at its June 2021 meeting, and that rate has now been established as the global minimum tax rate under this framework. The agreement requires that it be applied at a jurisdictional level to multinational entities with revenues exceeding 750 million euros. Discussions to finalize technical details are still ongoing and are expected to be accepted in November of 2021. Concerning other key provisions, we would note that the October 8, 2021 statement has retained the Pillar 2 provisions, which provides that countries are not required to adopt the Pillar 2 rules. However, multinational enterprises caught under the rules will still have to pay the relevant tax on a jurisdictional basis to an appropriate authority as allowed for under the rules. This gives the government of Bermuda the flexibility to confer with our industry stakeholders and with the Tax Reform Commission, when that commission is embodied, to develop what works best for Bermuda and its various constituents within the new international standard on tax cooperation. As I noted earlier, Bermuda has been an active participant in the international discussions on this initiative, and we have had extensive dialogue with industry throughout the process. They have provided invaluable input, and we look forward to continuing our work together as we progress the work on this important matter. A key part of our fiscal program is our close monitoring and management of the government's revenue and expenditures. As we have done in previous years, we intend to publish a mid-year performance update during November. We've already commenced work to prepare for the 2022-2023 budget, and we are carefully reviewing the current state of our economy, the needs of our community, the opportunities and threats, the work being done to progress reform and recovery, and the actions required to maintain fiscal discipline. Again, we would highlight that we continue to work to ensure that we can achieve the right balance between fiscal prudency, providing appropriate support to assist persons and entities during these challenging times, and provide the necessary focus on future growth and development. In closing, I would like to thank the Ministry of Finance team and other government colleagues for their support and dedication, our industry partners for their commitment and collaboration, and the people of Bermuda who continue to demonstrate their strength and resilience in times of crisis. As we keep on moving forward together, we will ensure that Bermuda emerges stronger and better from the pandemic and continues to make a significant and positive impact on the world around us. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. World Gazette, questions?
Sure, thank you, Minister. First off, if I could start by asking you, I don't know if you saw a report in the paper last week. There was some commentary from Anchor Investment Management, which claimed that inflation was being underreported by government and that the misery index was in actual fact closer to 17% than 5 or 6%. What's your view on that?
I didn't see the Anchor report. I would be interested to kind of understand what their concern is around what is incorrect in this reporting that has happened.
Okay, thank you. Are you able to quantify what the financial impact on government revenues and expenditures has been during the fourth wave of COVID?
Well, the fourth wave would have occurred during July and August and September. Our books just closed for the second quarter, which is the quarter that ends September the 30th, and so we are still processing the figures, and so we'll have a better sense of the impact when we do our mid-year review, which I mentioned in my comments earlier would be in mid-November.
Okay, thank you. In the last budget, you said that estimated government revenue for the year will be 998.8 million, and there was a target to have a budget deficit of 124.5 million. Again, can you provide any update as to whether you're still on target for that, or? So
we've only just finished the second quarter 14 days ago, and we're processing the numbers now. I will make a public statement on the results as we normally do. We've started the budget process, and our budget process for next year is typically informed by the results mid-year.
Right.
So these numbers will be disclosed at that time. What I will say about the revenue target and the expenditure, the deficit target, we have very little control over the revenue numbers, ostensibly. We can control our cost, and I'm certainly focused on the deficit number. Folks may not appreciate, but we have about $950 million of debt maturing over the course of the next 30 months. And so within the next year and a bit, I will be having to go back to the market to start refinancing activities. It is important that we contain our deficits and keep our focus on managing our cost appropriately, because we'll have to present our case to investors at some point next year, and that will be instrumental in determining how successful we'll be in those offerings.
So will there be a drive next year to perhaps bring the deficit down? Or is that a little bit too ambitious, do you think?
Well, the budgets are typically ambitious, and if you look at the budget that was produced this year, we were very thoughtful about it. We said $124.6 or $7 million for deficit for this fiscal year, and about $42 million for next year, eventually leading to 23-24 to a slight surplus.
Okay.
That is still our plan. We will see what the numbers yield in the coming weeks, and we will recalibrate as we need to, but we are focused on returning to a place of being surplus in 23-24.
In March, you said that Bermuda was on the edge of a fiscal cliff. Are we still on the edge, or have we backed away a bit, do you think?
I think the environment that we currently are operating in, one in which is the pandemic, which is having a profoundly negative impact on our economy, certainly kind of helps to reinforce the statement that I made back in March. We have a lot of work to do, and I think the strategy that has been laid out has been to work towards growing the economy, reducing our deficits to eventually get to places of surplus when we can start to tackle the issues around our national debt.
Right.
But until we get to a place where we can get that balance, it's going to continue to be difficult.
You mentioned earlier the 15% global minimum tax rate. Could you just clarify how that's going to work in Bermuda and what impact it's going to have, do you think?
It's a good question. My answer to that is I don't know how it's going to work in Bermuda yet. We still have yet to get all the details.
Right.
What I did say during the course of the statement is that all countries are not required to embrace or implement the 15% tax rate. However, corporations are obliged to pay it to
Right.
a taxing authority. And so what we were going to do, we're going to work with industry around the final product and determine a way that works best for Bermuda in the interest of the country and our stakeholders.
Okay. How many companies have deregistered since the introduction of the European Economic Substance Rules? Do you have any figures for that?
I don't, but what I do know is that our register, in terms of the size of it, remains the same.
So it's not as if we've had a big...
There has not been a massive,
Exodus,
any
no.
significant, any outflow of any significance that I'm aware of.
Okay. Also going back to March, you stated that a potential buyer was in the pipeline for Caroline Bay, and yet we haven't heard anything further on that. Do you know what's happening there?
I think what I said is that the assets at Caroline Bay are under the control of the Joint Divisional Liquidators, who were appointed by the court and who are independent, and that is EY Bermuda. EY had run a process to try to find ways to get money back for those persons who were creditors of Caroline Bay.
Yeah.
The government has a substantial claim by virtue of the guarantees that we had put into place. And we ended up paying money to the investors and purchased bonds that were held by the folks who lent money to the Caroline Bay portion of the project. There were buyers, I'm advised. The offers were not deemed to be satisfactory by the JPLs, and so they've gone away. So we continue to work to find ways of moving this project forward with respect to our own involvement in it.
What do you think the broader issues are, the challenges facing Bermuda? For example, let's talk about the supply chain collapsing, the global supply chain collapsing. So do you think that could cause any problems to Bermuda? And
I think we live in a world that is very much integrated, and in as much as there was that event that happened with that mega container getting stuck in the Suez Canal, I think it was, that had an impact on global supply chains. I am encouraged in watching the news of late that the United States is doing a bunch of additional work, including 24-hour clearing and docking in an effort to make sure that any potential impacts to supply chains are minimized. But it is an issue because the pandemic has had a profound impact, negative impact, on the global economy. And it is not unexpected that there would be some disruptions that would be caused, and that those disruptions would flow through to other parts of the world.
Okay, just three final questions. You mentioned that Bermuda has this excellent reputation as a sort of financial centre, and all the legislation is in place and all that. But again, Bermuda keeps on getting named as this tax haven. We had the Paradise Papers out last week, the week before, and we're branded with this this tax haven reference. What do you think Bermuda can do to disassociate itself with jurisdictions that aren't necessarily as squeaky clean as Bermuda is? Why are we still getting this name for ourselves?
I think we do what we've always done, and that is that we push back hard against any claims that seek to describe us as something that we're not. We have very, very strong regulation. We have a very, very strong and competent, internationally recognized regulator. We have been recognized by international bodies for compliance with AML, ATF. We have 41 tax information exchange agreements with countries all around the world that allow competent authorities, tax authorities around the world, to make requests of us for information. We're obliged to provide information in a timely manner. When that framework is assessed, we consistently score very, very well. And so part of my job is to ensure that I put out the message around what we are.
Sure.
I can't spend a whole lot of time kind of refuting or countering those statements, but I have to tell people what we are and then demonstrate it through the work that we've done with respect to this regime in Bermuda.
Okay. Have you had any budget estimates from the Ministry of Education concerning the redevelopment of or restructuring of the whole school system starting from next year? Have any idea of how much that's going to cost in terms of building new schools and improving
I
current
think
ones.
the Minister of Education is doing, him and his team are doing the work required around assessing the cost of new school infrastructure. But I think that is some ways away in terms of the actual execution of that plan.
Sure.
The first phase of the plan requires that we transition to a system that has middle schools going away, and we have primary and secondary schools within respective parishes.
Okay.
The work around what's it going to cost for new infrastructure is important work and needs to be done properly, because the cost could be significant. And my expectation is that when they present something to me, that it has been fully considered before me and my team evaluate how we go about figuring out how to fund it.
Sure. And finally, what are your thoughts on the post office, Bermuda post office, going into the importation business effectively? I don't know if you saw, there were some comments from the Minister for the Cabinet Office, Wayne Ferbert, last week, saying that everybody's shopping online, and that's why government has teamed up with this overseas entity to, as I say, effectively go into the importation business. There was a lot of sort of strong reaction to that. One question was, why go into competition against local firms, local importers, and partner up with a US company? Why not use a local firm? And also, that's, you're basically encouraging people to shop online. I think Mr. Ferbert said that he was in actual fact making it easier for people to shop online, and everybody does it. Shouldn't government be doing more to encourage people to buy Bermuda?
Well, I'm not going to add to the furor over last Friday's interview and Saturday's article in the papers, but to say this, that we've been very supportive of the retail industry during the course of the pandemic, and there has been some outreach to me, and we will certainly engage them in a conversation. There are things the government has done in support of retailers domestically, including providing the opportunity for them to defer the payment of duty on the goods that they import. Bermudians are shopping online, but people around the world are shopping online, and I think what's needed is that people need to adjust their models accordingly to ensure that they are addressing the needs of the customers that they're trying to serve. But we will continue to work with the retail sector, because it's an important part of our economy that employs lots of people. And what I do is I encourage people to buy Bermuda.
Okay. Minister, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jonathan. Sorry. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, members of the media, and thank you, Minister. That concludes our press conference for today.